unbelievable, honestly. He leads their team in targets and receiving yards.
He's their best. He's literally their best player.
He's their only player. He's ridiculously good, though.
Yeah, I'm good. Hey guys, welcome into another edition of our PrizePicks College Football Show. And we have as always, got my co-host Matt Gajewski. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. If you guys haven't used PrizePicks before, just understand that if you haven't, just go download it in the Apple Store or Google Store, whatever device you have. Use code Awesemo and we will match up to $100 on your first deposit. PrizePicks is a site where you can go and bet on over-unders for player props. Right now, we're going to give you some college football props because they offer the most out of anyone in the country that I've seen. And go win some money. If you do a 5-pick, you can win up to 10xing on your money, 2xing if you get 4 right, or you could get 40% of your money back if you only get 3 right. Hopefully, me and Matt give you some 5 or 10x's this week. We've been pretty good, but 1 or 2 picks have fallen short for us. So, Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited for college football this weekend. We're starting to get to the point in the year where we have like all the situations shaking out for the playoffs, like Cincinnati's going to play tonight. And then you also have a lot of teams kind of in evaluation mode with the like new landscape on the transfer portal. A lot of these teams are going to have to evaluate some of these players in hopes that they don't leave. So it's just like an interesting time to be a college football fan. And I feel like there's a little more just dynamics moving around than normal.
Yeah, no, this time of year gets fun because the weather starts to change. Some of your Big Ten games get to be, snow and just ugly weather.
It snowed here this morning.
Oh God. This is like my favorite time of the year for college football, to be honest, but let's get into it. We got a ton of things to talk about. And if you guys haven't already, subscribe to Awesemo so you can get updated on all the content like this show. I'd really appreciate it. But Matt, what is your first pick that we get to talk about?
So for tonight, I'm going to start with passing yards. There's a couple passing ones that are pretty interesting. And Tanner Mordecai from SMU. This is actually one of those situations we just kind of alluded to in SMU. Well, first we'll go over the game environment. So they're playing UCF. It's a UCF team that is looking much, much different under Gus Malzahn. And I think part of this is because they lost their starting quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, really early in the year. But they've morphed from basically the fastest team in the country, good pass rate, to one of the slower teams in the country and a well below average pass rate. They have very bad quarterback play under Keene. He's been one of the least efficient signal callers this year. And you're actually seeing this reflected in the total, which is at 59, which is much, much lower than we've seen SMU in recent weeks. So there's a lot of game environment stuff pointing towards the under on Mordecai's prop, which is 314. That's about 5 yards below his season average. And then their coaching staff came out today and earlier this week talking about how they were going to get Preston Stone snaps. Stone is perhaps, I don't have the recruiting numbers in front of me, but he's certainly one of the best recruits this program's ever gotten, maybe the single best quarterback, and he's going to transfer if they don't play him. So they need to see what they have in this guy and try to evaluate their quarterback situation. If there's any sort of reduced snaps for Mordecai, there's no room for error on the passing prop. UCF actually plays decent defense, especially against the pass. This is a one I really like towards the under.
Yeah, I'm a UCF fan, so I watch our games each week. So I will say it's been a lot different under Mikey Keene instead of our Dylan Gabriel, Mackenzie Millen, and other people in between there. But it's definitely a prop that when you put it in there, I was like, okay, I'm going to hear his reasoning because I hear SMU playing UCF. This game usually turns into a 45-55 type of game. But when you look at UCF, they are running a lot less plays. And again, if they're going to be playing 2 quarterbacks, I am completely agreeing with you. I'm going to be adding that one to my picks this weekend. And, I don't love unders, but another under that I like for passing yards is Bryce Young under 324 passing yards. I've been an Alabama fan for quite some time. That's getting rid of that bias out of the way. Bama's 52-point favorites against New Mexico State. I don't believe we're going to be playing Bryce Young to go out there and throw the ball 45 times. I think he'll be under 25 passing attempts because Alabama in the next 2 weeks, they play Auburn and Arkansas. And those 2 games are games where we don't want to have Bryce Young or get hurt in this one or anything like that. And in the two similar games that we've seen this year, out of, a 52-point spread, Bryce Young only threw for 227 yards against Mercer and then 313 against Southern Miss. But Southern Miss was able to find the end zone against us, which I don't think New Mexico State is going to be able to do. This is just one of those games where I'm not expecting Bryce Young to have the volume needed to hit the over on 324 passing yards. I know this is not one you project, Matt, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I would be in 100% agreement with you. You would just need crazy efficiency, which I mean, they could do. It's New Mexico State, but at the same time, you and I are volume-based guys. That's where we make our money. This is one I would go towards the under on as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we speak about the volume, like New Mexico is not going to drive the ball against Alabama, so we're not going to have long fields to work from. It's going to be probably working from the 40, and that's just, again, it would take extreme volume and him to get multiple 40-plus yard touchdowns for him to hit the 324-yard passing prop. But we do have an over passing yards, and that is for you to debate. You like CJ Stroud over 304 passing yards in this one.
Yeah, love this game environment for Ohio State. And some people might shy away. Purdue plays decent defense. That is one concern here. But at the same time, the game is sitting with a total above 60. Ohio State is a 3-touchdown favorite, as they are in most games in the Big Ten, unless they're playing some of the elite competition. But even so, they're still a team that's throwing the ball nearly 53% of the time. So they are definitely very high in terms of pass rate over expectation. You look at Purdue on the other side, they're one of the fastest teams and the pass heaviest teams in the entire country, top 10 in both play rate and play volume and pass rate, So that creates an environment where you are not slowing down the game whatsoever. You're creating additional opportunities for this Ohio State offense to be on the field. And then his projection, his prop, 304 yards, that's well below his season average. He averages 335. Based on the matchup, we were a little below that in terms of our projections at Awesemo, but even so, he still is cresting 305 yards on most occasions. This is one you can look towards the other on this Ohio State team. I'll be looking at a lot of overs for this team this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, and Garrett Wilson coming back helps that passing game quite a bit. You saw Jackson Najiba just be able to do it from anywhere on the field. This is one of those games that I think Ohio State's just going to crush Purdue. I don't know how you feel about the betting side of things. I know they're 20-point favorites, so they're supposed to, but I've just seen way too many people talk about Purdue upsetting Ohio State because they have beaten Iowa and Michigan State this year. I'm looking at this game and I'm like, Ohio State doesn't have the same quarterback play that those two teams had. They have NFL pass catchers. I'm easily projecting Ohio State to just run over Purdue in this one.
Yeah, and if they do that, what I like is they're not a team that just embraces the run when they're ahead. Their passing rate over expectations really high. Again, 53% pass rate nearly. They're a team that will continue to throw the ball even when they're ahead. So I think that just speaks to Stroud being such a strong play on this slate. The over is something I really like.
Yeah, and getting into another quarterback over, but we're going to go to the rushing side of things. Caleb Williams over 39.5 rushing yards. 3 of the 4 games he has started this year, he has ran for over 60 yards. And in the game that they didn't, they were up 28-7 at halftime. This game's on the road against the Baylor team that's coming off a tough loss against TCU that they should not have, quite frankly, lost that game. They were playing Chandler Morris at quarterback. This game has a 5.5-point spread in favor of Oklahoma. And you look at some of the running quarterbacks in the Big 12 that have played Baylor. Spencer Sanders ran for 76. Chandler Morris ran for 70 last weekend. And the West Virginia backup quarterback who comes in at rushing situations, he also ran for 55 yards. Over 39.5 rushing yards for Caleb Williams is too low for me. And I expect him to have the carries needed. And as a true freshman on the road, this will be a big game for him to utilize his legs.
Yeah, his median projection for me comes out at 41.5, so a little bit towards the over, but that's not baking in any additional efficiency you could see from a poor defense, at least against running quarterbacks. So I like that little tidbit you had there with some of the matchups that other quarterbacks have been able to exploit here with Baylor. So Caleb Williams, he already projects towards the over. That context, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're coming off a bye week too, Oklahoma. So they've had plenty of plenty of time to study this, plenty of time to get things going, get some packages up. And Lincoln Riley has dialed some things up. He hasn't been too great to some of the other pieces to this offense, but for Caleb Williams, I think this is a easy prop for him to hit.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
But now getting into one of the best tools that I did not really take a look at because, Florida just recently legalized sportsbook, OddsShopper. I don't know if you guys have utilized the tool OddsShopper yet, but if you haven't, it's a free tool. We don't make you sign up, and it gives you the best return on investment from our projections. So pretty much you can go on the site, you can look through the player props, you can sort it multiple ways for the NFL and NBA, and it'll just give you what site is offering the best odds. And you can even sort through your states. This is one of the best tools that I can now take a part of. So that's really helpful and really cool. And it's free to use. You don't need to sign up. And the Awesemo projections are baked into it. So you can see where we see huge value, where I believe in the NFL right now, OJ Howard's receiving prop is just way too low. And we like the over in that one. And there's just so many things you can do with it that you should be taking advantage of. And Matt, I know you were telling before the show, if you haven't used it, you're going to be using a ton of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also in an illegal state. So like it's harder for me. The OddsShopper tool, like the big benefits of it, and what a lot of people don't realize about sports betting is such a large part of your return comes from finding the best lines and finding these lines before they move. Unfortunately, I don't have access to that living in Wisconsin. We just don't have legal sports betting. But if you do, and you are taking part in this on a weekly basis, like do yourself a favor. It tells you literally on there which place you can find the best line, and you can click it and go right to the platform. So it's a huge tool. If you're using OddsShopper, it's definitely adding value to your sports betting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I can't wait to continue to utilize it with the new Hard Rock sports betting app that I've got down here in South Florida. It's been a fun week, and hopefully,
Yeah, congrats to you, my man.
Yeah,
that's big.
Hopefully we get it up there for you in Wisconsin, or you just come down to South Florida, man, hang out, go get that Tournament of Champions qualifier ticket for the NFL, and come hang out in Miami.
Man, I would love that. I'll come down either way. We'll do some sports betting, maybe in bowl season.
Oh, that'd be perfect. I mean, hey, we got some bowl games to get to, but let's get into more prize picks. We'll we got a ton to get to, and up next, we actually are continuing in the rushing side of things. You've got Hassan Haskins over 77.5 rushing yards.
So this prop is priced for Hassan Haskins, just normal game, playing with Blake Corum. Everything's all good for Michigan. The problem is everything's not all good for Michigan. Blake Corum got hurt after 2 touches in their last game, and we don't really have injury information coming out of Michigan, and we're not going to get it. It's just not what Jim Harbaugh does. He's going to leave this as a cloudy situation up until game time. But the fact that Blake Corum wasn't able to return suggests to me that we could see him at the very least limited, and there's a chance he's just downright out of this game. And if he is, Hassan Haskins projects well over 100 yards. Right now, you're looking at a little bit of an edge towards the over with Corum in, and then you remove him from the projections, and Haskins, his projection obviously skyrockets. So 77.5 rushing yards here. There's just a lot of ways for him to hit it. And if Corum ends up being out, it's going to be a smash. Like they already don't have Donovan Edwards too. So their third string back is already gone. If they lose Corum, they just don't have anybody else to handle the work.
That is, I didn't even go look deep into the Hassan Haskins prop. It's already risen to 82.5 yards from the 77.5 that we got it at. I agree that if Blake Corum is
82 is still too low, like no 20 yards too low.
I was looking at Hassan Haskins game log and just looked at it, and I was like, oh, that's like over 77.5. That's like his average rushing yards from what I've seen throughout the games. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna bet it. And then you're telling me Blake Corum's out, and I know how big Blake Corum is for Michigan and Penn State. That's a big way to beat them. I don't think Michigan's going to be able to get it done through the air.
Yeah, Michigan's advantages are on the ground still. They're a team that only throws the ball 38% of the time. Penn State's run defense is middling. It definitely doesn't scare you. They're allowing 147 yards per game to opposing backs. And then this game actually has like some sneaky upside in terms of play volume. Penn State plays way above average. Michigan's actually playing above average in terms of pace, even though they're so run heavy, which is a little bit interesting. They are playing a lot of hurry up. And I don't know if that is because they have like options in Corum and maybe they'd slow it if he's out. I find it hard to believe though. And I think there's a lot of ways for Haskins to get here. Like you mentioned, he's averaging 92 rushing yards with Corum in the games. And now you're removing him potentially. Just a ton of value towards the over here for Corum or for Haskins, excuse me.
Yeah, no, I agree there, and especially with the injuries they're dealing with and that game script. I mean, Big Ten football is just so fun because like these games are wild and they have a good time. And Penn State's been better offensively, so like that game will be a good one to watch. A top 10 matchup for in a huge game for Michigan as they try to get back their season. They got the Ohio State matchup soon, and that's going to be the biggest game of the year for the Big 12 or Big 10 with what it's going to come down to. But moving forward to another, player prop that I love, Chris Rodriguez, the Kentucky running back, over 109 rushing yards. They are playing Vanderbilt, who is one of the worst run defenses in college football. And in their last game or last year against Vanderbilt, on just 13 carries, Chris Rodriguez was able to run for 120 yards. This game, it only has a 21.5 point spread. Kentucky is going to be, or been pretty bad recently. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit closer throughout, not closer throughout the game, but it's not going to be far away enough away for Chris Rodriguez not to get the touches. And if he is able to get, 18 to 19 carries, I think he's going to be well over 109 yards, and it's going to be one of those huge games for him. And especially without them having to bench anybody.
Yeah, I mean, this team's coming off a 3-game losing streak. They need a situation to get right here. And we know they want to run the ball. They haven't been able to after they've gotten down in some games, but that's the strength of this team. Vanderbilt's defense is just not SEC level competition. So as long as he gets a moderate workload, which I expect him to, he should hit the over here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Music to my ears. But moving into one of my last player prop before we get into some of yours, this is one that I had to fight you for. Trayvon Henderson over 92.5 rushing yards. Henderson is simply one of the best running backs in college football. Last week, I know he didn't hit the crazy prop that he was supposed to hit, but Nebraska was a better run defense than Purdue. Purdue's giving up 4.4 yards per carry, while Nebraska's giving up 3.8. You look at some of the games in the previous games for Purdue, both Wisconsin running backs hit for over 100 yards. Kenneth Walker ran for 146, and Josh McCray, who's Illinois' second/third string running back, he ran for 156 yards. 92 yards is simply too low for a running back this talented. And it's not like he didn't get the ball against Nebraska. He just didn't have one of those big runs because Nebraska committed to stopping the run and let Jackson Najiba go for over 200 receiving yards. Purdue, not as talented of a run defense. I really like this over.
Yeah, I was trying to do this one myself, and you'd already claimed it. So this it's mispriced for sure. And the workload's been there for Henderson when he's healthy. He has over 20 carries in back-to-back games with upside for like 28, which we saw in their second most recent game. He easily projects above 100 yards here. And like we talked about before, this Ohio State team is just going to score points. They're not really priced for having a 40-point implied team total. And I think some of the defensive metrics that Purdue has shown kind of keeps these props in check, when really Vegas and bookmakers are telling us everything we need to know. This Ohio State team is going to move the ball. I think they can do it on the ground, in the air. And I don't hate using some of these players together from the pass game and the run game. I think they can both get there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Ohio State is going to rout Purdue from just my expectations. The way people are treating this game, it's like, Purdue's beaten 2 top 5 teams already. They're perfect. They're primed for an upset. And then Ohio State just has a statement game, which, helps them for their playoff push. They're obviously the 4 spot right now, but again, they need to go undefeated and continue to make some big wins to solidify their spot in the playoffs. And let's move on to that's a funny pick for me because I actually recruited this kid coming out of high school. He didn't play receiver. He was a quarterback for, I forgot what school he went to, but when I was at UCF working over there, Ryan O'Keefe was a quarterback we recruited to play receiver. You got his under at 66.5 receiving yards. I'm guessing this has a lot to do with Jalen Robinson's news coming back.
Yeah, it does. Ryan O'Keefe is projected right at his season average. He's averaging 66.5 yards per game. And a lot of that coming front loaded when they had Dylan Gabriel. But now you have Jalen Robinson projected to return to the offense. Early in the year, Robinson easily led the team in basically every single major receiving metric you'd looked at. We don't know his status, at least clearly right now, but he is practicing in full, at least according to reports, which is a good sign for his availability. And if he's practicing in full, that tells me he shouldn't be very limited. Like he's going out, he's practicing, going through everything he needs to. They've been very cautious with him. So in his return, I do think he is impactful in this offense. And that alone should just take away some opportunities from O'Keefe.
They even gave you some more room. They bumped his receiving prop up to 77.5 yards for you. Yeah, they
That's
went from
unbelievable. I'm going to look up his projection right now. I didn't write it down, but like,
no, you're good. I was about to say, I was like, I just looking at it and I'm like, they bumped it up. That's pretty nuts. Cause like Mikey Keene has had games where he's thrown for like 154 yards. Like we killed Temple and Ryan O'Keefe had a huge game against Temple.
he
Not,
projects for 57 yards.
yeah, no, that's going to be one I'll be hammering over the
And
weekend.
like
Like,
Jalen Robinson doesn't project that well either. Like he projects for 40. But just like his presence in an offense that's only projected for 210 passing yards, like there's not a lot of room for error.
yeah, and again, it's going to be a slowed down version of this game, and like we're still going to run the ball. Like I think we can run the ball against SMU's defense. Like I'm not certain that we're going to break off the explosive runs, but we're going to be able to do that. And with Jalen Robinson coming back, like Jalen Robinson will be targeted much more often than Ryan O'Keefe if he is giving it a full go, and he has practiced all week. So that was one of the shocking. Like I can't believe they even decided to list the prop, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean they just don't know. So take advantage of it. There's certainly ways to do so.
Yeah, and taking advantage of some other picks that we didn't quite. We have some extra ones for you guys. You like Will Rogers over 310 passing yards. There's one that I was thinking about going to, but I just didn't quite know if I wanted to play around with the Auburn game.
Yeah, I think you can. Like the volume's going to be there, and that's always what you're banking on with Will Rogers. I mean, the Auburn defense is certainly like middling to above average, which you'd think hurts you in this matchup. And it's reflected in the total. It's just 50 points. With all that said, like Auburn's allowed big games here. Will Rogers, he's going to dink and dunk his way there. He's averaging 365 passing yards per game. And I mean, they face good opponents. He was at 300 yards against Alabama. Some of the other tougher defenses in the SEC, like 417 yards against Arkansas, with 370 against LSU early in the season when they had some of their players like Stingley and Ricks, and like Kentucky 344. Like this guy just backdoors his way into 300-yard games. So to see him at 310, it's just too low for a guy that throws the ball 54 times a game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I again, it was one of the ones I was thinking about. I didn't know how I felt about that Auburn defense, but I agree that he's going to throw the ball 50 times. And early in the year, they listed his props at like 260, 270. And it was like, are they just concerned about him getting benched? He's not going to get benched. He's just going to continue throwing the ball in this Mike Leach offense. But no, going forward, Miami, Mr. Did you see the what he's trying to claim? The trademark he's trying to claim? He's
no, what is it?
Tyler Van Dyne. He is trying to claim the phrase Tyler Van Dyne for him to start selling some merchandise.
He deserves it after his last couple games. I'm very skeptical of Tyler Van Dyke, Miami's third string quarterback coming in early in the year. But man, this guy has blossomed into like a young stud in their last 3 games. Over 300 yards in each of the last 3. And against some quality opponents like NC State and Pitt were mixed in there. 2 of the better defenses in the ACC. And now he has the benefit of coming up against Florida State. And Florida State not good on either side of the defense, like passing or rushing. This is what I think you could take advantage of in multiple ways because Miami's so banged up. And they've actually improved since some of these injuries. But first and foremost, like Van Dyke, the efficiency's been there. The volume's been there. Miami's running 76 plays per game, and they're passing the ball 54% of the time. So volume's there for Van Dyke, and he's been extremely efficient, taking advantage of some of the better defenses in the conference. I also like Jalen Knight's over. It's 81.5 rushing yards. This dude has over 20 touches now, 3 straight games. Just looking at raw carries, over 20 in 2 of the last 3. And in their most recent contest, he had 32 rush attempts. They already lost Cameron Harris and Donald Chaney for the year. He's the only guy they use. Like he's getting the Breece Hall treatment in this offense. And it's not the most dynamic offense. He's not like a household name, but the workload's there for him. And the matchup definitely doesn't scare you. This Miami team implied over 30 points again. I think they can both hit the overs. They're projected like backups taking on starting roles, but we have a sample of these guys already, and they've both been efficient.
Yeah, no, Jalen Knight was like a 4 or 5-star or 4-star recruit out of Deerfield Beach. That he's been a pretty good player, just not getting the full role because Miami played that committee, and now there's no committee. But Josh Corbin was one of those guys that I thought I was going to be taking his over in rushing yards as well. But I just looking at that nightmare of just offense for Florida State, I decided to stay away. Do you have any love for Corbin or no?
Not really. I think it could go back to a timeshare. Last week, they didn't have Tawafali, and he might be back. And he's not a guy that like handles a large workload himself, but even a few carries siphoned away from Corbin would affect his bottom line.
Yeah. But let's get these last two ones out of the way before we get going. You got Kai Thompson over 61.5 rushing yards, and then Jaden Reed over 74.5 receiving yards.
Oh, two great ones, both injury related. Kai Thomas for Minnesota going up against Iowa, a game with an incredibly low total. It's at 37. Iowa plays good run defense, but these are two teams that are just going to slam the ball into the back of their offensive linemen 40, 45 times per game. And we're going to end this with like a 9-6 score. But with that said, like Minnesota's lost so many starting backs this year. Muhammad Ibrahim, Trey Potts, Bryce Williams, they're all out for the year. They went with a committee between Kai Thomas and Marquise Irving in the first game where these two were the lone backs. And Kai Thomas won out. He outcarried Marquise Irving 16-5 in their last game. And this is a spot where Minnesota's just going to run up the rushing attempts. He easily projects like close to 100 yards for me. He's projected as if this is going to be a timeshare, and it probably will be to some degree, but more on the end of 70-30 split in favor of Kai Thomas, if last week was any indication. And for Jaden Reed, like that game environment is so sneaky. It's Michigan State taking on Maryland. And this game overall, it has a total north of 60. Michigan's a 14-point favorite. Maryland's extremely fast and extremely pass heavy, so they pace up opposing teams. And since Big Ten play kicked off, Michigan State has been faster and pass heavier than their season averages, just played an easier schedule to begin the year. Now, they don't have Jalen Naylor, who has a 26% target share in this offense. And Jaden Reed immediately had double-digit targets in games where Naylor was limited or out. He's an explosive downfield threat, and he projects for north of 90 yards on the account that he took on a lot of the targets that Naylor vacated. They did not use a lot of Trey Mosley. They used a little bit of Monterey Foster, but Jaden Reed's their alpha right now, and he's going to see the target volume in a game that projects to be up-tempo and pass-heavy, especially from the Maryland side, pacing up the game. Jaden Reed over 74.5. This is another solid prop.
Yeah, no, I do like that one as well. Last week I got the sneaky 3K Trey Mosley as my run back and David Bell and Aiden O'Connell stacked for college football DFS, which everybody should be checking out. You and Matt's show live before lock for college football. Those are very important, very good and informative shows. But also for tonight, we have some basketball shows to get to. You got the live before lock and the deeper dive coming up at 5 p.m. with Adam and Dave. It's great shows we got going on at Awesemo. And if you haven't already, sign up for PrizePicks. Use code Awesemo. We'll match up to $100 on your first deposit. It's a great site to use, and these props will win you some money. And on your way out, be sure to subscribe, like to the show. And as always, Matt, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And Awesemo, our producer, shout out to him out here, and give us some likes. It's really appreciate everybody tuning in and taking on some of these props.